Hey guys, before we start the video today, I just want to say that I do now have channel memberships available for everyone if they want to. It's just a way to support the channel further than just watching the videos. So I do want to thank my current members now who have signed up, as well as Resto Rod and Beef Supreme, who are my mid-tier, my first two mid-tier members. So I appreciate you guys very much. If you guys do want to join, I really would appreciate it, but don't ever feel like you have to. Obviously, watching the videos helps me out a lot. Just in that regard, but if you want to support the channel just a little further, channel memberships are right for you. Anyways, guys, let's get started with today's video. Hey, how's it going, everyone? My name is Ryan with IowaClassicCars, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to rescue a 1952 Oldsmobile and see if we can get it to run again. So, Oldsmobile for 1952 had a 303 Rocket V8 engine. This car has been off the road since 1962. And it's been here in this junkyard that my friend owns ever since. And I'm not really sure what drew me to this car, but something did. It's something said, save me. The roof has got a pretty good sized ding in it, but I've actually just took a hammer and hit the inside of it, and it's actually starting to pop the dent out, so that should be okay there. But it's got a hell of a nice patina to it. I'm wondering how it's going to clean up. It's got most of its trim there, the Rocket callouts. It's a Rocket 88. Here's the motor. It's pretty complete, pretty sanitary. These are a goofy looking carburetor. I've been told they're called a turtleback carburetor. I am missing the air filter, but other than that, it's pretty complete. There is another carburetor down in the yard that is complete, so I will be going to grab that. Just have a parts one. But yeah, this is a pretty cool car. Old Rocket right on the valve cover. The interior is there. It's not the most sanitary in the world, but I think it'll clean up some. Seats are there, but it's just mainly springs. So anyways, we're gonna have the skid loader lift up the back end, put some tires on it, load her up, and take her home. I've got to be honest, I'm not that hopeful with how long this thing has sat here and missing the thermostat housing. And the carburetor is actually pretty loose. It's not securely bolted to the manifold. I'm not really sure how this will go in terms of getting it running, but just, I don't know, I love this car. It's not a 59 or an Impala, but I just love the look of it. I'm gonna go power wash it now. Let's lock it down, go power wash it, and see just how much of this grime and dirt and crap comes off. I really hope it cleans up. I think it will though. It's a beautiful car. So it's about a month and a half later now that this car is home, and it's actually nice enough and not windy enough to work on it. But before we get to the engine here, which is very complete and actually pretty sanitary, the spark plugs are super easily accessible there. But one cool thing about this car, I did finally get the door open. So like I was saying, I finally got the door open here, and I noticed that this car has got a cutout here. And I thought I knew what this was, and I looked it up and I confirmed it. This car had an electronic eye. Now, I wish it was still here. These ones aren't like big dollar, but they're still cool to have. 52, I believe, was the first year of the electronic eye. And it's just a cool piece of technology for 60 years ago. It also would have had the optional clock right there in the dash, which is pretty cool. I did get a spare turtleback carburetor and intake because the one that I have on this car is actually missing the choke portion of it. But yeah, she's a glorified parts car. It's a really cool car. I love having it. I'm glad I pulled it out of that junkyard, but I mean, let's be honest here. It's just parts. It does have an awesome patina to it. The roof has got a pretty good dent in the top here, but just beating the thing with my fist and it's coming out, so hopefully the roof can be saved. But the coolest part that I found here was this can, this RC can. Now my dad swears this is mid-70s. I can't remember what he told me this guy's name was, but if you guys know, let me know down below. Definitely a cool can. It's not too beat up. The crazy thing though about this car is that the last tag on it was 1962, and obviously that can is not from 62. So this car must have been sitting in the junkyard. Maybe the guys that took the electronic eye were drinking RC Cola and decided they wanted to throw the can away when they were leaving the junkyard. So anyways, who knows about that? These are the coolest carburetors. I love these things. I will need to replace this, I'm fairly certain. It's loose and it's missing the butterflies here as well as the choke mechanism. So at least I got a spare one of those. We can work on that, but let's get these spark plugs out and let's actually look inside of the cylinders here and see what we're working with. Pretty clean spark plug. Looks like some moss is growing inside of that, so that's always a good sign. Same with that one. I mean, it's got some rust, I'm sure, from sitting for 50 years, but nothing terrible. All right, so cylinder 1. I'm trying to do this so you guys can see it, but it's getting kind of hard here with the glare of the sun. But cylinder 1, I mean, it's got some flaky rust in there, but nothing crazy. Cylinder 2 looks pretty clean. Again, a little bit of surface, you know, flaky rust, but nothing crazy. 3 looks really good. Just a tiny bit of flake on the bottom. And 8. No, so I'm sorry. I did this in the last video. I said 1, 3, 5, 7 was on the passenger side. No, it's 2, 4, 6, 8. So cylinder number 8 looks the best out of the 4 so far. Let's go to the other side and check that out. Cylinder 1 doesn't look bad. Cylinder 3 doesn't look bad. Cylinder 5 looks really good. Wish this thing did not have such a glare. And cylinder 7. I think this motor is savable. I mean, I guess it's wishful thinking. It's been sitting for 60 years, but I'm gonna grab some mystery oil. We'll fill her up, let her sit a couple weeks, come back, maybe we'll break it free. I love this engine because these spark plugs are at like a 45-degree angle on like a small block Chevy. They're kind of tucked under the exhaust, and they're kind of like a 90, and this makes working on these really nice, easy, accessible. So I'm filling these cylinders full of Marvel Mystery Oil because you guys know I love that stuff. I wish someday Marvel would sponsor me, but maybe that's wishful thinking. So we're filling these cylinders all the way up. A cool thing about this this car is that the oil, I'll show you guys in a second, the oil is actually really clean. I mean, it looks like it was not too well worn before it was parked back in 1962. And actually the transmission has got oil in it too. All right, so here's the oil. Looks like caramel, honestly. But still, it's full. And it's not super, super dark. And here's the transmission oil. And it's the same thing. Full. And nice and clean. So that gives me some hope. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put these spark plugs in just a couple turns a piece, just to keep any moisture that might get in the next week or so. Keep that at bay. And we'll go to work on that roof here quick. See if we can fix that. And then we'll come back when it's nice and warm and not windy in a couple weeks and see what we can do here. All right, so as you guys see right there, this entire thing, where my hand kind of is all dented. So we're just gonna use a little bit of manpower. Actually came out really nice. Yeah. That worked way better than I thought it was going to. No more dent. All right, let's leave this thing for a couple weeks. Let the oil do its thing. Come back and maybe we'll have some fire after 60 years. Okay, everybody, we're back on the 52 Olds project today, and I am here in the junkyard where the car came from. And we have a whole frame. I believe this is for a 53 or newer, because while the engine is the same, the rear end is coil springs versus leaf springs like I've got. So I did take the intake off this motor. It's kind of a shame that it's really sitting here, but the junkyard is a wealth of parts and knowledge and information. But I need this single bolt crank pulley. I'm gonna weld a bar across there and try to make this like an engine turning tool. So I'm gonna take this one in case I mess it up. I've still got my original one to use on the car itself. But that's the plan, is just to pull that off of there. We're gonna weld a piece of angle iron on and then weld it on top of that. A 1/2 inch impact socket, and hopefully with a breaker bar and it bolted to the crank. That way we can do it. So I'm gonna pull this fan quick. I'm actually surprised the water pump isn't stuck. But I'll pull that quick, get that out of the way, pull that crank pulley, and then we'll get back to working on it. So it's cool though to see this thing here in the junkyard. It's been here a while. Look how low that wheel's sunk. Okay, so that did not work as planned. As you can see, it's just so brittle. That might be a little better. The middle part is on a keyway, and that stayed on, but the pulley itself came off, and it seems like it just cast. So probably not the best to weld to, but I don't know, maybe I can make something here to sit in the middle like that and then weld a bar across it. I'm not sure, but we'll figure it out. Okay, walking here in the junkyard. This is either a 54 or 55 Pontiac, I believe. But this one's got an Olds rocket in it. And let me see here. It's got a better style pulley. So I'm gonna see if I can get this pulley off in one piece. And we'll try this again. And it's a 4-barrel car. So if anyone knows if this intake will work on that 52, let me know, because this would be cool to have. All right, let me see if I can get that pulley off, and we'll be in action here. I didn't bring the GoPro today, so I'm filming this on my cell phone. There we go, 3-jaw puller. Pulling that crank pulley right off of there. All right, everyone, well, it's another brand new day here. It's 75 and sunny, and well, the sun's going down. No wind at all. And we're gonna pull this pulley off of here. And it's a little tighter than the last one. This is on the 52 Olds here that we're actually working on today. But slowly but surely, she's walking off of there. So, gonna get her pulled. And then I've got a cool little tool that I'm designing out of the old pulley I took off, the 55 Olds. And hopefully she will break free that way. So the day is finally here to try to break this engine free. Here is the original pulley. And as you can see, it's just a cast piece. Not a whole lot of metal here. This one's a little better. This is off of 55 Olds. The diameter is the same, but it's a lot more beefy, a lot more metal in there. We have these tapped for a 3/8 by 24 fine thread bolt, and this actually works out pretty good because my engine turning tool fits in there perfectly. So we're going to take these bolts, bolt it up, and try to turn the engine using that keyway right there. They actually make a keyway turning tool if you're rebuilding these engines, you know, and they're on a stand, but with this one being locked up, kind of gonna use some ingenuity here. So use our turning tool, so 3 tapped holes, this new pulley. If it breaks free, we're gonna put the new pulley or the old pulley back on to run the car, but hopefully this will be our best chance. I know I could pry on the flywheel. That would involve taking the lower bell housing off, which takes the starter and all the other stuff off of there. And then at the end of the day, you're still prying underneath the car that weighs 40-some hundred pounds. I would much prefer to put a bar on the crank with a keyway and a socket versus crawling under it with a bar. So this will be the best chance to break her free. Let's get her bolted on and see what happens. All right, so there's the pulley. I'm gonna put the bolt in. And the bolt's not long enough. Great. Oh boy. We're gonna tap it on. I think now I can get the bolt on it. Nope, not yet. Keep tapping away.
She's on. Now to put the turning tool on. This might be a little difficult. All right, everybody, so the spark plugs are out. I got this turning tool on there. The bolt holding the crank pulley, just keeping it tight against the crank, is in and tight. So I'm just gonna put this bar and my extension on, and we're just gonna work it back and forth and see if it breaks free. Okay, go the other side. The whole motor's rocking. Well, that's not a good sign. Okay, well, the whole motor is moving, so I guess let's pull a valve cover and see if something's hiding under there that, I don't know, I probably should have done that first, but the inside of the bores are really clean. There's oil in it. Let's just pull a valve cover for fun. These rockers look pretty good. And by pretty good, I mean really good. I mean, obviously they're dirty and greasy, but no rust at all. We'll keep trying it here with this bar. I'll put this valve cover back on and yeah, just keep going. Yes! Yes! Yes, absolutely yes. Oh. Woo! She's free. All right. Look at that. I'll be damned. Yes, she's free. Victory, everyone. Well, maybe not victory yet. It's tough to get it to run, but that's a win right there. Okay, so that did the trick, that turning tool that we made. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna keep that around for future use. I'm gonna get a new battery cable. This one's pretty corroded. Gonna get a new negative cable, new spark plugs, probably get a new cap. Well, we're gonna get everything new. This car's gonna run. This car's gonna run good. I'm really looking forward to this. Yeah, we could clean the points and clean the gap, the spark plugs, and clean them, but you know what? For 80, 100 bucks for all new parts, why not? So I'm gonna get on the horn, get some parts coming, and we'll come back next week and try that starter with the loser switch, see if we can get it to turn over with the starter, wire it all up, get a new carburetor, change that out, and hopefully she's gonna run after a hiatus of 50 some years sitting.
6 months later.
So we're back on the 52 Olds today. I want to give a shout out to Ryan H. out of Indiana. Probably didn't want to share his last name, but he sent me this starter from a 53 Olds, and the 53 was the first year of a 12-volt system. So the 52 obviously has a 6-volt, so we're going to get a 12-volt coil, and then new spark plug wires to handle the higher voltage, and bolt the starter in, put the new carburetor on, and hopefully, yeah, she's gonna run here very soon. So I've now had this car for probably 5 months, and I took 2 months to get the engine to soak. I came back a couple weeks later after that and broke the motor free. A couple weeks later, there's the carburetor. Rebuilt that. Very neat and simple carburetors, but I'm not going to go into that right now. And finally, a 53 Olds starter showed up from my friend Ryan H. in Indiana. So thank you, buddy, for sending me that. It does work. I have bench tested it, but our problem was the starter solenoid. When you would ground, you know, let's just say you're bench testing it, and you put the ground on the starter right here, and you put power to this stud like normal, it would spin the drive but not kick it out, and it would spin it right away. There was no delay. I mean, as soon as you put power here, it was going to spin. Now the weird thing is, if you touched power to the solenoid stud, nothing would happen. But what would happen was, if you put power up here to the top stud and grounded the solenoid, it would kick it out but not spin it. So we had a problem. We had it constantly spinning with power here, and when we put power here and grounded this, it would kick it out but not spin it. So if anyone in the off chance is putting a 52 or 53 Oldsmobile starter in one of these cars, I watched Corvette Ben, and he displayed and talked about the starter, but he didn't show how it was wired up. And I was so disappointed. You know, we were so close to getting it going, and I mean, I was looking at his video, and it was a great video. It didn't show what we needed here. So that's why I'm explaining it to everyone. But what I'm gonna do is the starter will ground to the block, and I will run the battery ground to the block, you know, like always. I will put the positive from the battery onto the top post here, and then this wire, which is the solenoid, I will put this on a toggle switch to the battery ground, because as soon as this has power from the battery and you touch this solenoid stud wire to a ground, it will kick it out and spin it. So Corvette Ben, great video. I wish you would have just showed the wiring. I know obviously it was in the car, you didn't need to, but man, we were so close, and your video did help a lot. But for anyone else that is doing this and needs help, that is how you do it. So I'm gonna put this in the car now, and then, you know, it's 105 degrees here today. In the morning, I will come back. We will mess with the changing of points, a 12-volt coil, because 1952 Olds is a 6-volt, and 1953 is 12. That's why I wanted that starter, because it's 12-volt. I'll switch it over to 12-volt, and then hopefully after 60 years or 70 years, it'll run again.
I'm really not sure. I mean, maybe this is truly a positive ground, but everything I read was stating it's negative ground. But like I said, the start or the hot wires in the top stud on the starter, it is grounded on the motor. I have my loser switch on the ground, and it's also feeding down to the solenoid stud on the starter. And when I connect the circuit, day 2 now of the weekend starter fiasco here, and I'm not going to record all this because it's all basic stuff, but new spark plugs, spark plug wires. I'm going to use a 1953 style point setup and a 12-volt condenser. Maybe the 6 volts the same, but I'm going to use just the one from a 53 Olds. Got a new rotor. So I'm going to replace all that stuff as well as the points. The starter, I don't know if you guys saw it in the video or not, but we did have some smoke yesterday, so the starter solenoid I believe is bad. Just going to pull it out of here, bench test it again. Maybe we just have a bad ground or something like that, but I think the solenoid has seen its last start. So with that, I'm just going to get all this stuff switched over, get it ready to go. There's a new 12-volt coil for the engine as well. And then once the starter, if I have to get a solenoid, get that replaced and put it back in the car. And then really we should be good to go. Carburetor's been rebuilt, motor's free. It does turn over with the starter when it works. So all we need now is spark and fuel and air. So here we go. All right, I want to show you guys my hat. I picked this up in Arizona. I love this thing, it's awesome. I'm sure Mortski will give me some crap for wearing khakis and now my bucket hat. But besides the point here, we now have it cranking. We do have spark. I will show you guys that here in a second. I've got a good system here. I've got a toggle, which is right here, that feeds the coil, and that's connected right here on this green and purple wire. So when you touch the positive, I have it left on, so you automatically have power to the points. And then the jumper here, like I explained before, is running down to the solenoid, and I've got it grounded on the battery negative there. So when you push the button, it'll crank it over and kick it out. So yeah, here we go. I'm going to show you guys this quick, and then we're going to clean out these 2 lines and put the fuel pump on that one, and then hopefully it should run. All right, so touch the positive there. It is smoking a lot out of the oil fill, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. I'm hoping that's not all my compression leaving the crankcase, but yeah, so I guess the next thing here, I'm gonna cut this line. We'll put a fuel fitting on it there, or a hose fitting, and run the fuel pump, prime it up, and then really, I mean, it should run. It's got spark, it's got fuel, it's got air. I can't see what else would be going on here. I've spent entirely way too much time on this thing, but my friend Norm gave me this old school dwell meter, volt, amps, all that fun stuff, and my points were about 42,000 or 42 degrees of dwell, so I'm way too far off there. I did have spark, which is kind of surprising still, but now if we put this on here like so, we're right at about 28 to 32 degrees of dwell. So that is, for a GM, pretty standard. So now you put all this stuff back together yet again, and then we just have to figure out this timing issue here. Okay guys, the day of reckoning is here. I've got all 3, so 1, 2, then the exhaust valve on that side unstuck. This number 1 exhaust valve is just, I've been fighting this thing probably 2 hours here today, and it is not coming loose regardless of how hard I beat on it with the crowbar and the ball peen hammer. So gonna leave that one stuck, but we do have 3 of the 4 unstuck, and other than that, everything is moving freely. So I've got the fuel pump hooked up here and here, negative and positive. I got the points here and here. One of these is the points. I don't know which one. One of them is. As soon as I touch this, I'm going to hit the little starter button here. I'm going to keep the choke closed and the throttle open, and hopefully we'll get this thing to run here. So, going to get my camera set up and we'll give this a shot. Okay, that's on. Well, I got to interrupt this thing. The cat killed a bird. God dang it. I know it's life, but that's frustrating. I feed him so well, and then he does that. Well, that kind of scared me. All right, we might as well check the oil. I heard a big boom. And the oil does not look bad. And it doesn't smell like gas, it just smells like old oil. But that boom that we heard the second time leads me to believe that there was an explosion inside the crankcase. So, I know we've looked at the top of the pistons. There's no holes we can see. I tightened down the bolts again on the carburetor there. I don't know. I'm stumped. I might have to call my old friend Norm and see if he has any old school wisdom. But we're close. It's got to be close here. All right, so to preface this, I do want to say I kind of did this thing backwards. I should have tested the compression right away. But, you know, I have learned a whole lot from this. I am not a mechanic by trade. I never went to school for auto mechanics, and I'm learning a whole lot the last 5 or 6 years. But with that, I did go today to O'Reilly's and bought a new compression tester here because mine was no longer working. And here are the results. Cylinder 1 has a stuck valve, so it's 0. Cylinder 2, which is on the passenger side, the first cylinder had 70 pounds, which is great. Number 3 had 28 pounds. Number 4 had 28 pounds. Number 5 cylinder had 40. 6, 7, and 8 all had 0. So this motor, even with it getting fuel in the rebuilt carburetor, with getting spark from the brand new points, ignition system, battery, the starter, all that good stuff, I don't believe this motor is going to run again as is. However, it is a good rebuildable core. It does exist. We did pull this car out of a junkyard where it had sat since 1962, and it looks a whole lot better now sitting on good tires than it ever did out there in the field, just sunk in the ground. And I learned a whole lot about this car, these 303 Olds engines, and just the simplicity of how everything was put back together. So while we did not get the car to run, I do still consider this a big win. I'm really proud of myself, to be quite honest, with, learning how to rebuild the carburetor, going through the rocker arms, the valve train, stuff like that. I learned a whole lot about it. It's always a win if you guys can learn something here. But even though the motor is going to fight us today, and it's worn out, it's tired, it's been sitting a long time, we did break it loose. We did, rescue this car and save it out of the junkyard. And if someone needs a good parts car, this car has got all of its, its bumper parts, the side chrome, a lot of the dash, the interior. There's a lot of good stuff here. And if you need that motor, for like a
a vintage race car or something, it is a not stuck, turning over, you know, good engine. It just needs rebuilt. So with that being said, even though it didn't run and drive, I still consider this a huge win and a huge victory. So if you guys did enjoy the process and the video today, please make sure to leave a thumbs up. Would you rebuild this engine, or would you just swap in something new? Let me know. I know the 303 Olds, you know, compared to today's stuff is just so obsolete, but they look so cool. I love that carburetor. I cannot get enough of that thing. That thing is just so cool looking. And if you guys are brand new, make sure to subscribe, as once the shop here is fully done, I want to do more of these style videos here in the future. So thank you all for watching. My name is Ryan with IowaClassicCars. Thanks for tagging along, and I'll catch you next time.